This slightly awkward photo call is something of a moment. Two anti-establishment parties are now the government in Rome. The Five Star Movement and the Northern League are no longer barbarians at the gate, they're running the Italian state.
Even though the markets seem to have reacted, with some sort of relief at the announcement of this government, the fact is that, we're looking at best paralysis, at worst, even more instability.
3 months on from the election, we now know that the new Prime Minister will be Giuseppe Conte, an academic. But real power will be wielded by Matteo Salvini, leader of the League, and Luigi Di Maio, leader of the movement, in their rather peculiar coalition.
This is not just any populist government. This is a populist government or an anti-system government that brings the left and the far right together. And these people have basically nothing in common other than their anti-system stance, the fact that they want to lower taxes, and the fact that they want to reverse the pension reform that had upped the age of retirement. Aside from that, they disagree on pretty much everything.
The big problem for Italy is its debt pile, which is effectively 1.5 times bigger than ours. The coalition's big spending plan could scare investors who currently lend to Italy and might wonder if they'll be repaid. That could create financial crisis. So, will the coalition really pursue their plan?
Reality will impose itself upon the fantasies, let's say, of the electoral campaign by these two parties that were never in government. When they will be in government, and fortunately there is a sort of a very powerful bureaucratic technocracy in Italy that is capable to run things much more than the government in office.
The coalition then faces a choice of letting down its voters or risking its credit supply. That could trigger a new euro crisis. But that's not the only issue for Europe. The coalition is very Eurosceptic.
The Eurozone reform, banking reform, all of this is going to be more difficult and get delayed because the Italians are not going to facilitate any of this.
Der Spiegel, a German magazine, today published this cover. They fear a debt crisis, the end of EU reform, the coalition's coziness with Russia, and the resurgence of nationalist populism across Europe.
Most of the European countries now has populist parties that are growing, some of them in government, as in Austria, now in Italy. And there is a sort of contagion of populism, and the Italian outcome could boost some populist formation here and there in Europe.
Populists, people who rail against the elites in the name of the people, may also be boosted by economic nationalists abroad. The US is beginning to raise tariffs against us.
If you take the European Union and you see the kind of tariff they charge, and then we don't, that's called not fair trade. I want fair trade. I like free trade, but I want fair trade. At a minimum, I want fair trade.
European voters might want economic nationalists of their own to reply in kind. The old world is under strain. The rules-based international order has a growing list of enemies. Movements of the left and right who want to cut the free movement of goods, capital and people.
Chris Cook. Well, earlier I spoke to a Five Star Movement MP, Manlio Di Stefano, and I asked him why Italian voters had decided to put his party and Lega into government.
People understood that we can do what they need, and why they understood this is because since the very beginning we did everything that we had promised during the campaigns. So now, when we brought to the Italian people our electoral program, and it is made of things that they were asking, like social welfare, the reform of the job environment, and mostly based also on green economy and all the typical green concept. It is something that we think are important for our country.
look at the situation in Greece, because many will draw the comparison. You had a radical left government, Syriza. It's in a coalition with a nationalistic, populist, right-wing partner. It came in with lots of very lavish promises, and it was going to take on the European establishment, and it has not worked out like that. And I wonder what lesson you draw from Greece.
Luckily, we are not Greece, and in any sense you can imagine it. I mean, we are a strong economy. We are still the fourth bigger economy in Europe, so we have all the possibility to find a good way to evolve and to improve our economy and our society. But when I listen to someone in the European Commission say that a good solution was applied on Greece, I say that maybe they've never been there, because the social system and the social economy is destroyed, I think, for the next 50 years.
But how are the Europeans meant to behave with regard to Italy if, and it's still only an if, you break some of the fiscal rules that the Eurozone has? They can't pick up the pieces if it goes wrong. So you're willing to accept full responsibility for it, I suppose, is the question.
We want to go in the European Commission to redeal the agreement that we signed in the past. And the EU has to understand that if we don't act like this, Italy and all the other countries that are facing a crisis, in 20 years, the EU will never exist. If Germany, France, or the other big countries don't understand that we are under the risk to destroy the European dream, we will go straight there.
Are you effectively saying to the Europeans, we're keen to stay, we're going to stay in the Euro and the EU, but if you get in our way or you impose unnecessary rules on us, then the game is over for Italy and the EU?
I don't want to go to the fight we just started. I mean, I trust in the EU. We are really focused on make it work, and I think that you will understand that there has to be a good cooperation. Everyone in the EU has to understand that if Italy is in trouble, you need to help her, because the opposite is to make Europe collapse.
Some are saying what you have done is bring not the fascists, but a very right-wing nationalist party back into government in Italy, of a kind that really hasn't been seen since Mussolini.
I have respect for the 6 million voters of the Lega Nord. I don't think that they feel close to Mussolini. Said that, the mistrust between each other brought us to create this agreement to start a government. We are a democratic party. We respect the human rights, human dignity, and international law. So there will be no room for that.
Manlio Di Stefano, thank you so much for talking to us tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Well, that's a view from an Italian MP from the Five Star Movement. What is all of this going to mean for the old guard in Italy, and indeed for the old guard in the rest of Europe? I'm joined now from Geneva by Sandra Gozi, an Italian MP for the Democratic Party, centre-left, and until today, Italy's Europe Minister, but no longer. Very good evening to you. Thanks for joining us. Look, I wonder what you make of what we just heard. They're really talking about a kind of existential crisis for the EU if the EU doesn't adapt or concede some points to their government and to the way the Eurozone is run.
Well, I think that is a very wrong approach, and I totally disagree with the method which is mentioned by my colleague Manlio Di Stefano to you. And I think that we are in front of opposite to a paradox alliance of extreme right, of the Lega, and unpredictable movements such as the Five Star Movement. And this government contract is very ambiguous, is very contradictory, because either they go and in an open conflict with the EU, and in that case they maybe can implement the contract, but that would mean to have a clash with the European Union, or they do not clash with the European Union. In that case, they won't implement their program. So yeah, we are in front of a very worrying situation, because either my country is going to open a battle against the EU, or we don't know what is going to implement. So I am very skeptical. I hope, of course, for the sake of my country, the sake of Europe, that this new government can bring some positive result, but I got serious doubt about their capacity to do so.
Well, let me give you another alternative, which would be that the European establishment listens to the voters all over the place, not just in Italy, saying we don't like the system. And the problem, is it not, that the likes of you, who've been in charge for so many years, are just sitting there saying the voters have got it wrong and we've got it right. And actually, you just have to bend and say, look, if the voters don't like it, the voters don't like it. How do we deliver what the voters want?
First of all, I haven't been in charge for so many years. I've been in charge in 2014, and I represent the political renewal in the center-left. And of course, I have suffered of the mistake which I made in the past. On there, I fully join you, but I'm not part of the establishment, and I'm not part of the old ruling class. And it is true that certainly at European level, many serious mistakes have been made. It is clear that the austerity recipe, which have been implemented by the Monti government in Italy, have not brought the positive result, and they have got very strong and negative social consequences, which are at the origin of the success of the five-star movement. On the other hand, the absence of the Union during the migratory crisis, leaving Italy alone in 2015, it has brought fuel in the engine of the extreme right of the Lega. So this is clear, and we have been denouncing that for years. There have been some improvement, but it has been too little too late. That is clear. On that, certainly some move is badly needed.
Well, you're just saying the same as the populists, and they're just saying it more clearly and more forcefully, and they're going to demand something happens, some action, which is clearly what the people of Italy want. I mean, this is democracy, isn't it?
But, I always respect democracy, but this doesn't mean that I have to share the choice of the majority. I have to respect that, and I have to work to persuade the majority to give the consensus to my party next time. So I fully respect the democratic choice of the Italians. I do not share the program for which the Italians gave the majority to the extreme right and the five-star movement, because I do not believe that unilateral threats can bring any result to Italy. So I'm strongly convinced that to promise the reform of the retirement system, the increase of the public debt, universal income to all the Italian families is feasible. So you can win the election making great promises, but if you cannot implement the promises, you got a problem. You got a problem either only in Italy or in Italy and with our European partner. And this is what I fear, because it is clear that the promises concerning the economic measure of the five-star movement, the promises of the Lega that has promised to expel 500,000 immigrants from Italy are simply false. Right. They cannot be implemented. It is easy to win an election with that. It is impossible to rule a country, and you are going to see.
Sandro Gozzi, it is going to be, well, it's going to be an interesting time for everybody. On that, I know everybody agrees. Sandro Gozzi, thank you very much.
Very interesting.
Thank you.